flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 33 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. And as always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for about 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Brian Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 teams run in the Hollywood Casino 400 at Kansas Speedway. Steve, welcome back. Episode 33 and second race of the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs is in the books. And I've been talking about since we got into the playoffs that all we're looking for is base hits to get through this first round. And I would say the Kansas race for the 12 team, Ryan Blaney, was pretty much the definition of a base hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going to Kansas City. Kansas City, here I come.
And I don't mean to say that in a bad way, but I mean, it wasn't super exciting. They put in the work. They picked up stage points, did what they had to do. The ending didn't work out super in their fashion, but it wasn't horrible. And it was decent. It's not a home run. Wasn't a double. Wasn't a triple. Base hit. And they got a nice cushion to sleep on this week as they head to Bristol next week. So, but racing overall, I mean, Kansas, I mean, it did get a little bit spread out toward the end until the final caution, but the next gen car on these 1.5-mile tracks raced pretty well. And I mean, the restarts at Kansas are pretty crazy as that goes too. So,
yeah, so, you're in the first round of the playoffs, 16 guys going, and it's going to be cut to 12. So you're competing with 16 guys. The other 20 that are out there. They're in the way. They're trying to win a race still. They have some sort of pride to play for. But, you just got to outperform guys and make sure nothing goofy happens, So being a little conservative or trying to do a little bit but not too much. Base hits is a great way of putting it. I know Jonathan's used that term before. We just need to hit a couple base hits here in the first round. And that's all they're doing is, it could be, they look at the 19 car over the weekend and over the last 2 weeks, heard a little thing today about them on Darlington that they knew something, or the driver knew something might've been wrong with the car and he didn't say nothing. And, then they have all the issues with the car, and then this week, a tire, just out of nowhere, just things like that. So, one more week like that, and then let's get to the next round and then keep competing every week, keep fighting every week.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. It might not be flashy right now, but when you think about this round of the playoffs, and even honestly the last race before the playoffs last year, so much drama, so much craziness, so many mechanical and crashes, and I'll take the ease of this season so far, this playoff run so far, over the drama that happened last year for sure. Yeah, and I think we'll just run with it.
Yeah, I mean, you get to a point where, next week is Bristol, and what crazy things can happen there, and what crazy stuff did happen there last year. Well, this year, let's just, you want to avoid those things, get some stage points, get yourself in position where you don't have to worry about somebody else breaking down or somebody else having a problem. I mean, once again, look at the 20 car these last 2 weeks too, right? The 20 car gets the pole. We think, man, he's looking good. Boy, everything looks good. And then they get to the race, and then, they traded pit crews to get the best pit crew on pit road. And for 2 weeks now, they've had nothing but pit crew issues, so, it's just, staying out of your own way is part of advancing right now, especially when you're going against 16 other teams or 15 other teams. So, just kind of, survive and advance. The old Jimmy V thing back in, he used to say that, survive and advance right now. And then, get to the rounds and, sure, maybe you're going to have to make a big play at some point, but you got to get to that point first. And, you don't do it by breaking down or making big mistakes. So, I'm pretty happy with the weekend, really.
Yeah, the only concerning part of the weekend, and we'll kind of kick off with this, is the fact that they go into practice at Kansas. They run an okay single lap speed. Averages scared me, and then qualifying overall kind of scared me. And we can go through this, but let's talk about that and talk about what your thoughts were after they went through that practice and qualifying session on Saturday.
It's interesting is, because I'll ask a question of Jonathan every once in a while, and he will get back to me about it. And set up for, even, you say, well, it's a mile and a half, right? Every mile and a half is different. Every mile and a half has a little bit different banking, or the corners are a little different, or the front stretch is a little different. So setup is different on every mile and a half. And then you got to take it as Kansas Raceway. You got to take into account the weather, whether it'll be windy or not on the weekend too, because the wind will come down through there and change the handling at one end versus the other end. So, we start off Friday with inspection, and the 23 failed twice. So he lost the car chief, and then they were going to lose pit selection too. We get to Saturday's practice. Ryan's in Group A. Like you said, like a couple laps in, he's P4 on the board. So you think right away, oh, well, it looks pretty good. But actually, 3 laps in, he comes in. He says it's too loose here. He's bringing it in. That's his decision. It wasn't, hey, bring it in. He's like, oh no, this is way, 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 way too loose. The 45 goes to the top of the board at one point. The 24 was the second fastest, but he had an issue. It says here it was the upper control arm. This becomes the thing because at that point, everybody thinks that he's going to have to go to the rear of the field or whatnot. But actually, they not only let him fix it, but because it's a supplied part from a manufacturer, he's allowed to replace it and not lose his qualifying. So about 9 minutes into the practice, he comes back out. They end up running 23 laps. They run pretty much to the end at this point because they didn't really have time to come back in and make another change, because it was discussed for a second if he wanted to come back in or not. But but his lap time was one of the fast 5. It was the 45, the 24, 23, 12, and the 47. So still kind of looked halfway decent, but we know that there was some sort of thing going on, and they were making a huge adjustment. And this kind of hurts, like, I want to say confidence too, but it makes it a little nerve wracking because you're watching the qualifying a little later on, and the way they have to come through 3 and 4 it's sketchy. Group B's practice, only 10 minutes in, only one car was actually faster than Ryan, and that was the 5 car. The 8 car hits the wall and hurts it. The 54 blows the right rear. I think they actually both blew right rears, which ends up being a thing that people want to look at. This low profile tire thing might be coming back again. People are trying to risk it a little bit, but I don't know why they would do that in practice, but
I do think those were set up issues. There's an issue that happens in the race that turns out to be a puncture, but yeah. In this case, I think they might have been on the edge a little bit too much, and it seems like all the teams learned that pretty quickly. Like, remember earlier in the year or last year, we can't do that.
So with Group A qualifying, Ryan goes out 16th here, and when Ryan gets into the car, he gets into the car with maybe a 4 or 5 to go before him, and he right away will ask Josh what he's seeing so far on track. And, the 19 ran like a 30.375, and, Ryan runs a 30.451. But he says no fuel in entry, tight entry, just not very connected to the track is what he said. So the lap, he was, not happy with it. The 5, the 45, 23, 24. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not the 5. 45, 23, 24, 19, and the 9. They were the top 5 there. And Ryan was 7th in that group. Like I said, with a 30.451. Really wasn't far off from the top 5. But, like I said, coming out of 4, there were guys who were going right next to the wall, maybe even touching the wall. And, just didn't want to risk that kind of risk with a car that didn't feel like it could do it. Group B's top 5 was the 1, the 20, the 5, the 34, and the 3. And so the only Ford in the top 10 for qualifying was the 34. So qualifying versus racing, it really is a double-edged sword right now, the way they've been doing it. Ends up Ryan Wee here, P17, and the 20 gets the pole. So we get the 8 and the 54 going to, didn't end up taking time here, so they're going to go to the rear of the field. Ryan has pit stall 31 with the 8 in front of him and an opening behind him on Sunday. The stages are 80, 165, 267, 9 sets of tires, fuel run of about 62 to 66 laps. They were very they ran their pit road speed, and literally Jonathan tells them it's a tad conservative, but he says go with that, and once again they don't want a speeding penalty, and at the open here, the 20 chooses the low lane for the start here. So within a lap or two, by lap 3, Ryan's up to 15th, and then at lap 5 we get the 19 hitting the wall, and Ryan's actually 14th because of that. And like I said,
that tire issue. Yeah. So immediately we were pointing to what happened to the 8 and 54, and it's like, here we go. Like, is this going to be a bad omen for the rest of the race? I know a little bit later on, Ryan even I think maybe just mentally is concerned about it happening to him too. But yeah, several laps later, they end up posting a photo of the tire with a hole in the middle of the tread. So it's like, oh, okay. So he ran something over. I think that put a lot of people at ease, and you didn't really hear too much about until something else that happens, too much about tires after that.
Yeah. So the 20 taking the bottom, Ryan taking the bottom for this next restart, lap 10. And on the front stretch, you cannot go below the line until you're past start finish. But once he does get past start finish, he does it right off the bat on this one. And the next lap does it again. And by lap 12, he's up to 9th place on the restart. And
completely erased that deficit, starting in the pack. And I was like, well, I guess qualifying didn't really matter because here we are.
In the top 10. Lap 19, he passed the 3 car up to 8th. Lap 21, the 11 does pass him. He's back to 9th. And Ryan says he's very loose here, getting looser. At lap 25, he's P9, but he's actually the top Ford at this point. Ryan's a little bit worried about the rear tire. And here's the thing, during these longer runs, they do have, they're wearing out the tires, and, you're hearing about tires blowing out and stuff like that during the weekend. So lap 29 to 43 passes, he's back 10th. And at lap 36, green flag stops. And Ryan is tightened, he says 2 numbers. So that's pretty heavy. Usually, a number to a half a number. 2 numbers pretty high. Lap 39, they're pitting, and it's a 9.5 stop. They end up doing a lap behind a lot of people here. And this is this whole thing where you hear about it on the radio and so forth. And I wish, just an opinion here, I wish TV quit doing that. Because we had a good discussion in the Discord chat actually about it with a couple people. And the reality is and Stellanarius will document it very well too with her Twitter thread. He does get mad, but it's pretty much gone within a half a lap. That's the part the TV doesn't show you or doesn't tell you. Jonathan will, or Jonathan actually won't say much, but Josh will actually say something. Josh will say something to the fact of, this guy or that guy is getting closer. This guy's doing that. Go back to race mode, basically. And Ryan clicks right back in. So he has a momentary frustration, and he gets it out. TV catches it. We get, this whole thing. Oh, he's a guy. He's an angry guy. No, it just lasts a couple seconds, but that's all you see because that's all TV gives you. If you listen to the scanner the way I do, he clicks back in pretty quick afterward. That basically they tell him that lap 44, he passes the 6 car. Not all the cars are pitted at this point yet. At lap 46, passes 17, gets to 14th. At lap 48, passes to 15, gets to 13th. Lap 50, passes the 38, the 77, is up to 11th. So the cycle completes with the 5 car now leading, and he's all the way up to 10th place. So he got it almost all back, Lap 63, we did caution for the 24 spinning off a 2 and the 3 car also. And
wanted to talk about this because this is a question I had for you, and the fact that when they go to pit here, you mentioned the 24 spinning. The 24 spins. He's part of this caution. But when they come down pit road, he still comes down pit road ahead of Ryan. And you said, well, that's because when he spun, he was like 15, because of the way the pit cycle was working, he was like 15 seconds ahead of Ryan. And my question to you was just like, but he was the caution. Like, I understand like blending back where you were for like other things on some cautions and stuff, but it just really confused me that somebody as part of the caution could still pit and then end up getting out front of everybody else that wasn't part of the yellow. So if you have insight on that,
was he the caution or was the 3-car actually the caution?
It's possible, but you still spin.
The things that happened to the 3-car. Okay, but here's the thing: the things that happened to the 3-car caused the 24 to spin, partially because I think it wasn't the 3-car losing rubber back there, and
he nosed it. I think he nosed into the wall,
right,
and he did shred some parts.
So that's happening. Caution comes out. As the caution comes out, the 24 is spinning.
I don't know, to me, you're still.
He loses. Here's the thing: is
still part of it.
He loses some of his spots, though. That's the thing, is he didn't spin from 9th and stay in 9th. He spun from like 3rd or something like that and ended up like 9th. So he lost some of the spots during the spin, but he must have got it back going and got himself to the next scoring loop, or wherever the field was frozen at that time. At the time of the caution, he was, once again, if you're moving at the time of the caution, they do give you position back. You know, even during the big wrecks, if you're still moving during the time of caution, you're able to pull away from the accident. Even if you're in the accident, they do give you some position. So
the only thing I can think of is that he spun before the 3 had its problems, and they called the caution for the 3 and didn't even worry about the 24. Like, that's the only logical thing that makes sense to me, because if they called the caution for the 3 and then the 24 spins out, like, I think you're part of that caution at that point, and when they go to pit road, they should line you up accordingly. But maybe we'll hear from some other outlets, or maybe nobody cares. But it made me mad because I was like, how the heck did he pit ahead and then come out ahead of the 12? It was just frustrating, and
us two,
it is what it is.
Us two guys talking. Us two guys talking about here ain't going to raise an eyebrow, and
no,
and nobody. And you're right. Nobody's going to say a word. And there are things that happen even in the first week too that I saw and heard about, and we saw and heard about that didn't get attention called to it. And it might be a playoff thing where they kind of like, oh, it's a playoff guy, and then they just kind of cover their eyes.
Let's just hope that they do it for the 12 team the rest of the way. So
that's it. See. That's all. Keep it even. That's all. Keep it even.
Anyway, I interrupted you, but I was frustrated with that whole sequence.
No, it's a good discussion to have. Ryan says he still needs a little tighter here. The back end is twitchy. 4 tires here, in 10th, out 10th, a 9.75 stop. Choose cone P9 for the restart. Actually, 23's leader taking top. Ryan takes the top. Restart lap 70, and I put wow up to 6th. So he got a great jump and got around some guys. That lap 71 passes the 45 up to 5th. The 5 is leading by this point. At lap 76, the 45 passes. So Ryan still passes him back, still 5th. So they kind of go back and forth a little. Ryan says too tight here. And here's the thing with the 1 car. He's behind the 1 car, and the 1 car is mirror driving really badly. And
had a shot for 4th here. It seemed like he was way faster, and then just got held up.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's become the style with this car, and even the last car a little bit, where you block more than and they've given these rear camera things to these guys to use, and they use them. That's how they use them. They tell the spotter to spot what's coming up, and then they look at the rear, and literally watching for 5 or 6 laps in a row, watching the in-car camera, they would get to the corner, and at the last second, the 1 car would hurry up and make the move in front of Ryan. So in other words, he was going to go low, but now all of a sudden he sees Ryan's up there. Oh yeah, I'm going to go back up there and block a run. And he just did that lap after lap after lap. So that's where that incident came on the radio. So people heard about his the spotter.
Yeah, I don't
of the
think
one.
this was on. This one didn't make it on TV, but it made the rounds on social media
Mhm.
pretty quickly. And yeah, second incident of Spicy Ryan on the radio. He what? I mean, we could say he said ask Josh, which Josh isn't going to do this, but ask
No,
Josh to go
to go punch the
punch
spotter.
another spotter. And again, this is a joke to NASCAR Chasm on one of his posts that this is just part of Ryan's process. But and
Mhm.
note that he doesn't ever really do this to his own team.
No,
At least he's calling out other people. And this isn't
Yeah.
like all race long happening, but again, so a moment of spiciness. He asked Josh, probably mostly kidding, but still in the heat of the moment, to go punch Brandon McReynolds. And I did see Brandon reply to this. So it gets shared by multiple media people because I mean they're going to share stuff like that if they hear it because they know it'll get traction. So
Mhm.
whatever floats their boat. So they share it. Brandon McReynolds does respond and just said like, that's cute. Or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
mean
and
it'll blow over after a week. I don't know if they'll talk about it on DBC or not. That's probably the only other, since those guys are spotters, they might talk about it. But I mean it's really I really think it was more Chastain than the spotter.
Yeah, I don't think it was a spotter at all. Like I said, he's mirror driving. He's using the camera to do it. I don't think McReynolds was telling him go high or go low. So we get to lap 80. The 5 car wins the stage, but Ryan P5. Boom! Right off the bat, we got some stage points. We're moving right up the leaderboard here, getting further away from that cut line. You're pitting here.
That's a fun one.
Oh, okay. I want you to clip.
Notice that I
want you-
said there was no drama in this race, and that's we're going through. I'm like forgetting about some drama that happens.
I want you to clip this when this is over with and put this out, and you can put the video out and everything else because I'm about to go off on people. This is that usual topic of fire the pit crew. Okay, so here we go. Okay, 4 tires and fuel, and he went in 5th and come out 18th. Okay, TV does show this later on. And what's interesting about that is they just show like 3 or 4 different people that had pit road incidents. Okay. And they're just like a combination and they don't explain any of them. They, oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Okay. So it was the left front tire that had an issue. Okay. Now I'm going to explain this and hopefully I do it justice, but I'm going to tell you that, I'm sure that on Stacking Pennies, if it comes up, Ryan will explain it because it was, it was something he had to deal with. Ryan Flores, I mean. But the steering wheel has pieces of tape on it, and there's pieces of tape on it because of when you come into pit, you have to turn the wheel depending on which side they're pitting the car so that the front wheel is turned because of the camber, because of the way they've got that wheel set up in there on the angle that they have it set up in there. The driver literally has to turn the wheel so that when the changer takes the tire off and puts another one on, it's at a certain angle so it gets in there easier.
It's also very important with the next gen car too, with the way those wheels come on and off specifically too.
Right, because you has to not only hit the hub, but then there's those little nubs on the back side of the wheel that have to actually click into place on that hub. So hanging a tire isn't just like throwing it up on there and making sure you're on the studs. The studs that you could see, like, the 5 studs that used to come through, right? This is totally different. The studs are the opposite. They're on the back, they're on the hub facing the wheel, and the wheel has to click onto them, and there's a ton of them. So they do the one side. When they come over to the other side, Ryan does not turn the wheel properly. Why do I know this? Because when the pit stop is over and they go up pit road, Ryan apologizes immediately for it. That was my fault. That was my bad. That was my mistake. Sorry about that, guys. I'm not quoting him verbatim, but that's what he did. Okay, so when you see it on TV, if you watch the replay, there's a point in time on the replay that they show you on TV where the wheel all of a sudden turns as they're trying to mess with it. And that's why, because he did not have it turned enough to where they needed it. So the wheel must not have been sitting on there properly for when Flores tried to hit it with the gun for it to actually lock it down the way it needed to. That's why they had to hurry up and go back and fix it. You see Flores motioning, you see them doing something. Well, that's what happened. Okay, this was not on the pit crew. Second thing that happens on this pit stop is they set the board for the driver to hit the board coming into the stall. And they're setting it back a little ways because the pit stall in front of them is the 8 car. The 8 car is on the same lap as them. We'll be pitting in and near and around them all day long. So you set it deep in your box to give your guy enough room to pull out. Ryan slid through it. I don't know if it's 5 feet, 10 feet, but he slid through it a little bit. Well, when you do that, you not only mess yourself up for that angle trying to get away, but you also mess the pit crew up, because when they come off the pit wall, they come off pit wall at about a 45-degree angle. And they do that so they can get around the front of the car as the front of the car is coming to that sign. If you go too deep past that sign, all of a sudden they've got to kind of bow it around the front of your car. Changes the footwork and changes the trajectory of going to the right side for the front tire changer. Okay. This all happened. And I know it happened because he not only apologized for it, but then talked about it during the caution laps afterward, what to do to correct it for the next time in. Once again, everybody wants to blame the pit crew. Everybody wants to blame the crew chief. Once in a while, the driver makes an error too. Okay. They overcome this. And that's the other thing about this. These are things if you keep working at it, you just overcome them. So like I said, you can listen to Stacking Pennies later in the week, and I'm sure they're going to address this and talk about it, and maybe in a different manner. But everybody that wants to fire everybody, I'm done with you people. Go watch another sport. I'm tired of it. This is his team. He's not going anywhere. You can't go to the pit crew store and buy pit crew guys, and there was no need to on this day. They were all either 10-second stops or sub 10-second stops all day long. These guys were almost perfect all day long. So I don't want to hear about it. Next week, and then next week there'll be an incident, right? But you can't.
Hope not.
No, we hope not. But they're doing a great job, and everybody who gets so critical right away, and all the posts, the Facebook posts especially, with the different groups. I'm sorry, but people need to take a breath and maybe watch it from a different angle, because if you see just what TV presents you, it's not everything. And TV didn't show you and didn't tell you all those things.
That's what
we try to every week.
That's what my point was going to be. I get it. Most of the folks kind of just see it black and white. He just raced his way into the top 5. He pits from 5th, comes out 18th or whatever it was. That's all they see. They see he came in 5th, came out 18th. TV shows a very brief clip of it that just basically makes it look like the tire changer left the wheel loose and they had to jack it back up and fix it. Gave no context to it, just said they had an issue on pit road. Was that 100% true? Yeah, they had an issue on pit road. What Steve just said is you can call us apologists or whatever. I don't think we're apologists. I think we're just trying to explain. And I don't want to sound like we're talking down to anybody else. It's just we spend a lot of time digging for the answers of the who, what, where, when, and why, just to try to present it to folks that maybe don't have the time to do that, or because TV or radio isn't presenting it to them. So that's kind of the service we're trying to provide here. So you can think what you want about us. That doesn't really matter. Think what you want about the pit crew. That doesn't really matter. We're just going to try to give you the facts. We just gave you kind of the facts of what happened, try to explain it. But again, I get it. If you don't have the information, all you're going to see is came in 5th, came out 18th. So fire the pit crew. If you don't do any more digging than that, yeah, I can understand where people are going to come away with that. And we've said it before, and I think Flores has said it himself on his show before, the 12 car is the hardest car to pit because they do have a history in the past of having some meltdowns in some key situations. And, we can't pretend that none of that happened, because it has happened in the past. But the only thing we can do is go week by week, situation by situation, and present the facts. And I feel that's what we've done. And I don't feel like we're spending, hours and hours defending people. We're just all about the facts here.
Yeah. Remember, same pit crew that won the All-Star race, same pit crew that won the Coca-Cola 600, same pit crew that's going to win races in the next couple weeks. I'm confident in that, because they are that good. Like I said, Ryan literally gets on the radio, and I left the notes there for a little while, and I left my body there for a little while too, I'm sure. But in the notes says it was his bad. He says, I didn't have the wheel turned. He literally says that. He said that he also discussing sliding into the stall too deep. He literally says those things. It wasn't asked of him. He says, I did that wrong. Okay. So we get to the choose here, the 5 taking the bottom, Ryan taking the bottom, restart lap 88. The lap 90 is up to 16th, the lap 92 up to 14th. That lap 93 passes the 16 car, actually gets to 12th at that point. Lap 98 passes the 8 car up to 11th. Lap 101 passes the 22. He's up to 10th, and he's still loose. Even though they've made number adjustments, he's still loose. Lap 109, caution for the 23 into the wall. The right rear blew.
This one, we don't know whether it was a puncture or not. He was really close to the wall when it blew, so they were able to repair this car, unlike the 19. Mm-hmm. But it was unfortunate because we know who goes on to win the race, and the 23 definitely had winning speed at points of this race.
Yeah. Ryan says a little more security. The turn was better. They're pitting 9th, come out 9th with a 10.21 stop. The leader takes, I think he took the top here. Ryan took the top. And Jonathan tells him at this point, the next stop, another tape width on the wheel. So they corrected to some extent on this pit stop, but Jonathan tells him we need a little more. So that tells you exactly that the tape wasn't on the wheel, or was on the wheel, and Ryan went to it, but it wasn't even far enough for what they had. So we restart lap 114 up to 8th here. At lap 115, caution for the 2. The 9 is leading at this point, Ryan in 8th. With the choose cone here, the leader takes bottom, Ryan takes bottom. And we restart lap 120. Lap 123, we pass the 1 car and get up to 6th here. Now, he adored the 4 car on this lap. Now, here's something, too, about doing something over his purpose or accident. And he immediately tells Josh that if he can, go apologize to Kevin Spotter, that he did not mean to do that on purpose. And at lap 126, Josh tells him that he got the message to Timmy, the Kevin Spotter.
He says nice things to other spotters. It's not all physical violence.
Right. And what's interesting about this is the next lap 127, he passed the 4 and got to 5th place. Now, because of this communication, I say partially because of this communication, Kevin gives him the spot. He was faster than Kevin. Kevin knew that. Kevin will race him like anybody would if he was angry at him, So getting across that communication may have been a good thing to do, He told him it was an accident, and it was. Ryan says he's a little tighter, but it didn't, he didn't mind it, actually. We get a caution for the 14 here at this point, and Jonathan talks about going to scuffs here, and he asked Ryan if he has any strong feelings. And Ryan says, no strong feelings. So Jonathan says, stay out. Let's stay out. 7 cars behind him stay out, so it's a little bit of a buffer. So Jonathan tells him we should be fine here. Ryan says 10-4. Most of the guys that pitted put their scuffs on. So, he may have had, but it ends up giving him another set of tires down the line if they need them. So, P3 here at the restart behind the 9 and the 5. The choose here, the 9 takes the bottom, the 5 takes the top, Ryan takes the top, trying to follow that 5 car. Lap 133, passed that 5 car, got around him, up to P2. Lap 138, the 4 car comes through and passing Ryan, so he ends up back in 3rd here. Lap 139, the 6 car comes alive, passes Ryan, and we're back to 4th. Ryan's talking about being tight. Lap 141 here. He tells them we're not, the next 25 laps are going to be a little, we're not going to be able to hold too many guys off here. Josh tells him the 45 and the 11 are the only things that are actually coming, so just stay strong, run your line. Lap 146, Ryan's talking about a vibration. I don't know what it is. So this is a little concerning because you only got a couple laps left of the stage, And at lap 150, the 11 passes back to 5th. 153, the 45 does pass back to 6th. And lap 154, we get the 43 passing. And at lap 157, Ryan's talking about the front end darting around. It says kind of weird. Lap 162, the 6 passes for the lead over the 9 car. And at lap 165, the 6 wins the stage. Ryan ends up 7th. 2 stages, bunch of stage points, moving back up the ladder here on the cut line, not on that bottom half of the board anymore where they show the cut line thing. It's cool on TV. They show you the guys that are in the red.
Yeah.
And then they show you the next 4 above them. And then that's it. Then they show the lineup, right? So Ryan's no longer in that little thing with the 4 right above the cut line. No, he's up there a little higher. We don't
Moving
have to
on.
see. Yeah.
One thing I'll say about this sequence here that I was sad about was the fact that before the 4 came and kind of held Ryan up and passed him there, the 9 was on the same plan as Ryan. He stayed out as well on the older tires. Ryan was like on the 9's bumper. And I'm like, if he could have just got past him, he would have had that, because what kept the 9 out front that long. And, Ryan ends up dropping through the field as people with fresher tires get by. He's back there in kind of the dirty air. But if you're out at the leader like the 9 was, I'm like, man, he probably could have been out there and finished, at least top 3, top 4 in the stage like the 9 did. I was like, so I was a little sad, but still got some good stage points out of it. And the key here, it doesn't really come into play, but it could have get that extra set in the pits that could have, been a race winning move if there's more carnage at the end of this race, but that doesn't play out. But I still think it was a good decision.
Yeah. Ryan says, hey, we still need to tighten up here. Jonathan tells him, good job hanging on. He says, we got our points, plus we got more tires for later. They are pitting in here 7th, coming out 6th with a 9.71 stop. And he tells them another tape mark to the left only. So once again, they're still adjusting this wheel situation with how far to turn the wheel. The choose car cone here, the 6 taking the bottom, Ryan taking the bottom here, and we restart lap 172. Settles pretty much into 6th place on this restart. Laps 175, we get a caution for the 21. We're staying out here. Choose cone 6 takes bottom, Ryan takes bottom, restarting at lap 180. The 9 passes, we're back to 7th. At lap 182, the 54 passes back to 8th. Another lap later, passes that 54 back to 7th here. At lap 107, the 11 takes the lead here. And at lap 198, Ryan says we're just loose. We're still just loose here. 202, he says no grip right now. Jonathan tells him we're like 15 away from pitting here. Lap 207, though, we got he hit the wall a little bit in turn 4, just lightly. Scraped it. They asked for a little, to look at it. Josh says it's just a little minor scrape. The green flag cycle starts at about lap 214 here. We're pitting. It's a 9.20 stop. The next lap.
Yeah, I was going to say this one. I think he gained some position on track here with a really fast stop.
Really great stop here. Some of the other leaders come the next lap, actually. At lap 225, the 99, the 34, 38 are still out there. Ryan is 9th, but with those guys still out there. Excuse me. So it should be 6th as it cycles around. Lap 231 passes the 38 physically on the track. The 99 pits, so he's up to 7th. Lap 234 passes the 34 physically on the track, is up to 6th. Lap 235, the 5 passes back to 7th here. Brian says we just don't have the rear grip they have. He just can't hit the throttle quick enough coming out of the turns. The 11's leading at this point. Lap 243, the 8 passes back to 8th here. At lap 247, Ryan says we're bleeding bad back here.
Yeah, just note the fact that this car was falling through the field at this point. Just want people to note that on the tires that were on, the handling of the car.
The handling of the car, it was...
he's not moving forward.
The driver and the team did a great job putting this thing in the top 10 most of the day, because it was probably a tenth to 2/10 slower than some of the cars they raced around. He did a great job holding position as long as he could. Lap 260, we get a caution for the 17. And so this is interesting here because they talk about how many cars are on the lead lap. Jonathan says something about doing a number 5. Ryan says 10-4. Ryan says we need freed up for a short run. This is a point where I do point out, like Josh says something on the radio, but they think that there should be 5, maybe 4 laps of green flag. They should go, green with 4 to go, maybe. They come into pit, and this is the other pit stop. Okay. Once again, people, they only see, like you said, is the black and white. They only see, okay, came in, what was he, 9th when he came in, right? And, comes in, and he's pitting behind the 8 car. And this is something that I actually, hopefully we'll hear some more about later in the week, maybe. But it's a gap situation. This happened a couple weeks ago to Ryan, and he's pitting behind the 8 and coming to pit road directly behind the 8 car. Now, if you've ever watched these pit stops from the front windshield like I have, the guys literally run around the front of the car. The thing is the 8 car will be coming through his pit stall at the same time if you come right behind that car. So you can't do that. You can't come right behind that car. You need to be 2, maybe 3 car lengths back. Jonathan reminds him of this. As they hit pit road, you slowly see Ryan back up just a hair. Now, mind you, this is going to lose you a position or 2 on pit road. It just is. Even if you do a pit stop as fast as everybody else, this will lose you a position or 2 because you've actually made a gap that's a 1/10 or 2/10 or maybe 3/10 of time. Okay.
It's a safety thing.
It's
You're
a
trying not to
safety
put your
thing.
pit crew in harm's way.
That's right. You cannot come right up behind that car that's pitting in front of you and just pull in a pit stall like that. They have nowhere to go. They literally would have to wait and screw around and wait for the 8 car to hit the box. But by leaving this gap, now all of a sudden, as soon as that 8 car comes by, they can hurry up and jump around over the wall and do a pit stop like they would normally do a pit stop. Not mess up with the choreography at all. Come around the front of the car. Once again, they're stopping short in the box to save room so they can go out around the 8 if they have to. Now, they do 4 tires here. And this was something that was discussed on the radio. Okay, so once again, everybody's like, oh, hindsight. And then, the post interview. And he wasn't mad in the post interview. You take a gamble here. You try to do something opposite other people. Okay. But they thought there was going to be 4 green flag laps. Because if you listen to the radio after this pit stop, you find out that they're mad that they ran extra pace laps. They ran extra pace laps. Don't know why. I think the track was clean. NASCAR maybe just decided they want it to be green, white checkers so they don't have extra carnage. This pit stop is 10.25. It's actually a very good pit stop for this situation. 99 car stays out. 3 cars take 2 tires, including the 8 car, I think, was one of them. The 22 was one of them. So those guys gain position right off the bat. Ryan loses positions to those guys. Okay, and he loses a position too based on the fact they had to gap their pit stop. Okay. But once again, if they get the extra 2 laps of green flag racing, who knows what they could do with the fresher tires compared to the guys who took 2. NASCAR kind of screwed them in that way. I don't quite understand what happened.
Yeah, like you said, they basically went into this final run thinking they were going to have at least 4 green flag laps. Instead, they end up getting a green, white checker, so that cuts that short.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned to you, like early in this race, Ryan had some really great restarts, but in some cases it took a lap or 2 or multiple laps for him to build his runs and make the passes that made them such great restarts. And he just didn't get the opportunity on this one. So what? He came in 9th, he lines up 15th.
Yeah.
for this final restart.
So the 99, it's funny because, like I said, they're running the pace laps after the They're running laps after the caution laps. I'm sorry, after the pit cycle. And Ryan says it on the radio. He says, "Why are we going? Why haven't we gone green? Why aren't we lining up? Why aren't we, 99 who stays out?" It's funny because he's just a moving roadblock up there. And, Jonathan tells him, "Hey, just keep doing what you've been doing. We're having a good day and we'll have a good day." The 99, from the time they go green, that's all Josh is spotting is the 99, because it's like in the middle, he's up high and he's coming back towards you. Literally that first lap, that's all they're doing is everybody's trying to just get around the 99. A couple of the guys who took the two tires, it worked out to some extent, like for Joey, especially because it got him up into the mix. He wasn't going to win the race. 45 car was who ends up winning the race. They interview him afterward. He don't even know what he did. It was such a blur to him, but he's
on 4 tires though.
He was on 4 tires, right? He was just up a little further. He made the pass he had to make. The misfortune of having to pit behind the guy that you're literally that you're running on the track behind really did, lose you a spot or two, and who knows what would that have done. But we get the green, white checkered, 45 wins, Ryan's P12. What's interesting is somebody even mentioned to me, like our friend Jerry Mariotti mentioned to me today, says, "Well, it would have been great to see if it would have stayed green, what would have happened." And Ryan was fending guys off at that point, and he probably would have finished 10th or 11th or 12th if it stayed green. They were losing 2 to 3 tenths a lap on guys behind them. So, like I said, you take a gamble on the 2 versus 4 based on how many cars you think are going to take the 2 versus how many you think are going to take the 4. There ended up being a little more buffer than they thought would happen, maybe, but they also thought they were going to be 1 to 2 more laps of green flag racing, and that not happening kind of hurt everything too. So, but overall, and as we look at the fantasy points later on, they were like the 7th or 8th best fantasy thing of the day. They picked up 20 some points. I mean, they just, all the bonus points plus the finish, spectacular, great day.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on the call, and it's one of those situations, like you said, there a lot went into it. I think our social media post said, they kind of played it safe with the call at the end, which they kind of did. But as you said, they also thought they were going to have a little bit more time to use those 4 tires in the first place. I kind of stressed this when you're going over the last few laps before this caution, is that this car was falling through the field. So he's kind of already burnt his stuff up.
Yeah.
So if you throw 2 tires on a car that he's also complaining of being pretty ill handling toward the end of that run, and you throw just 2 new tires on it and throw it even more off balance, I just don't know. Except for maybe, I don't even know how many spots he would have gained, or maybe he would just come out around the same. I mean, I'm not really sure where he would have restarted. Maybe even if he restarts 5th or something, because he does that. It's going to be all more defense. He's going to be trying to get in the way of people, which, man, that's kind of dangerous.
Well,
I mean, I just say it is what it is. The calls for, oh man, I wish we had Todd Gordon. He would have taken 2. And it's like, really, one of the most risk averse crew chiefs in history, not in history, but still, Todd would have taken 4. I mean, it's kind of, it's not funny, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the silver lining you mentioned here is really going to be the playoff points position here, because you have a guy in the 19 car of Martin Truex Jr., the regular season champion, that came in to the playoffs with 36 bonus points, is below the cut line because they had 2 bad races in a row. The 12 car came into the playoffs, had 2, as I described earlier and last week, 2 base hit races in a row. They are now moved all the way up. So coming into the playoffs, they were 1 point above the cut line in the 12th position. Heading into Bristol, they're now in the 6th position in the playoff standings, plus 25 points to the good. Now, that's not a guarantee. Bristol can be Bristol. There can be chaos. Ryan could still miss the next round. But considering he was +1 2 races ago, plus 25 now, he was plus, I think, 18 or 17 or 18 last week. I preached, in our Daytona recap and then in our Darlington recap, that this team needed to find a way to get stage points because they had not gotten any stage points probably over the last 5 or 6 races of the season. That might be exaggerating a little bit, but definitely not consistently. Some of that had to do with not qualifying up front and kind of running from behind. But man, these 2 races, they focused on points. They're trying to live to fight another day, and they can head to Bristol feeling pretty good. Not awesome, but I would say pretty good. And a lot of it has to do with the decisions that they've made. Yes, maybe they've been some risk-averse decisions. They haven't swung for the fences here, but they're in a much different position in theyese playoffs for sure.
And they're the big stat, their 9th career Cup Series ordinal.
I am one of the biggest guys when it comes to stats, especially Ryan Blaney stats. And I told Steve, I don't know what that is. And then when he explained it to me, I said, that's like the worst stat of all time.
Here's an ordinal. An ordinal is described as a finishing position that's the same as your car number. So that's 9 times in his career he's finished 12th. And what's funny about it is the guy who put this up is called Racing Ordinals on Twitter, right? That's literally the name of his Twitter, Racing Ordinals. And he points out that actually breaks a tie that he had at one point with his dad, Dave, which we're guessing was with the 22 car. And I guarantee you, like, as soon as I mentioned to my wife what an ordinal was, and then I said Dave, she right away said 22 car. And the reason she did is she says it happened to him so many times. And that's from memory. She's like, it happened so many times. She says, I said he should have changed his number to the 1. Which makes sense, right? If you're going to get an ordinal, you might as well get a 1, right? Have the 1 car and get the 1. So yeah, that's I know, something to laugh about, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
We don't want to finish 12th very often, but
so it is what it is. Am I super ecstatic about the finish? No. Would I rather them? I don't even know that I could say I'd rather them take the gamble and take 2. I don't know. But
here's the
top
thing
10
about
would have been nice. But
here's the thing about
it is.
Where did Kyle Busch finish?
I don't know. That's actually
I think it was either 8th or 9th, right? Kyle took 2, finished like 8th or 9th, and Ryan would have started behind Kyle.
Yeah.
So he maybe lost a spot or 2 basically by doing what he did. But once again, if there was an extra lap or 2, like there should have been, then he might have gained 2 or 3 spots, and then what, right? Exactly. So, but at that point in the race, you have already done a lot of work in the first 2 stages to get all those stage points. So 2 or 3 spots, they try to make a move. They try to make something happen. And like I said, they went opposite of what other people were doing. That's all. Because that's what you do. If everybody would have lined up and took 2 tires, then what? But not everybody's going to. Some people are going to try and take the 4. Once again, though, there should have been 3 laps at the end, maybe 4. But, nobody's going to point that out today. Like I said, I think NASCAR wanted a green, white checker finish because there's less chance of there being multiple finishes, multiple green, white checkers. If they restarted with 4 to go or 3 to go, I guarantee you they would have wrecked in the first 2 laps before the white flag, and they would have had to rack them again, which would have played to the advantage of the guys who took 4 tires.
So here we are again. This is the current NASCAR Cup Series playoff standings. Both Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick have advanced with their victories in the first 2 races of the playoffs at Darlington and Kansas. In third, we have Denny Hamlin. That's plus 49. Byron's plus 41. Keselowski is plus 33 in fifth. Ryan is in sixth at plus 25. Kyle Busch is in seventh, plus 24. Eighth position is the one of Ross Chastain, plus 18 to the cut line. Ninth is Buescher at plus 13. Bell is in 10th as well, plus 13. I think Buescher just has the tiebreaker. 11th is teammate Logano, who's plus 12. And Kevin Harvick is now on the bubble, 12th position, plus 7 over the cut line. The 4 drivers that are below the cut line heading into Bristol Motor Speedway, 2 of them, I think, well, I don't know. One of them has a good shot of maybe getting back over that hump, and that's Martin Truex Jr., who, again, I mentioned, came into the playoffs with 36 bonus playoff points and has still managed to find a way to fall below the cut line with kind of two mediocre races the past couple of weeks here. So Truex is -7. Bubba Wallace, who was having a really strong race until the tire issue, is now -19. Here's two that's going to be real difficult. The 47 Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at -22 in the 16th position. The 34 Michael McDowell -40. So McDowell, absolute must win. Truex, Wallace, and Stenhouse could have a shot to point in, but man, there has to be some carnage in those top 12 positions in the playoff standing. So that's where we are as we head into the race at Bristol Motor Speedway.
I look at the bottom three guys, Bubba being 19 from the cut line, Stenhouse 22 from it, and McDowell 40 from it. I look at them as must win. You know, Bubba possibly if enough people maybe have issue, but I really look at those three like they almost have to win. Truex he just needs to run a clean race first. You know, he's had two problem races. I have a feeling that somebody within the pack may have a bad race and maybe have an incident early in the race and put themselves below the cut line by the end of the race. So the key to the whole weekend is just having a clean race, trying to stay on the lead lap, trying to finish the laps, try to get to the stage points. If you can get to the stage points in the first two stages, I think he can lock himself in at that point if he gets enough stage points. So, just get to the stage points, get some of them, get yourself up to the front. But it really is going to be interesting to watch some of the guys in the back, what they have to do to get up there. Stenhouse, I don't know. Does Stenhouse run well at Bristol?
He can. He has some pretty decent runs in the past, but he's still pretty much every track is super up and down. So
yeah, and McDowell, I'm not sure. They show glimmers sometimes of speed. Who's actually the guy to look out for will be Buescher because he's got good history there. So yeah, I mean, this weekend I can't wait to go.
Now, before we get to that, we have one more thing to wrap up.
Oh,
and you actually might want to talk about it, and that is our results from this past week in Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League.
Yeah, let's do that.
Kansas. So I'm going to take a look at my starting lineup. I must say, I told Steve that, if that last caution didn't happen and the race just played out green, I think I was going to finish in the top 10, but the chaos of the two tires calls and the last restart and all that put me back to an 18th place finish in points earned at Kansas. So this was my starting lineup. Denny Hamlin got me 48 points. The winner, Tyler Reddick, got me 51. Chase Elliott got me 41. Bubba Wallace, unfortunately, got me 14 with his issues. Christopher Bell got me 38. So really strong starting lineup. It was really, my lowest, outside of Bubba, my lowest point getter was 38 points. So Bubba doesn't have his issue and finishes decently. I think I would have had a shot getting up into the top 10. I did initially have Martin Truex Jr. as in my starting lineup, but within seconds of the race starting or minutes of the race starting, everybody went scrambling that started Truex. He had a really good track record at Kansas. So I think I had Elliott. I think I had Chase Elliott in the garage, so I had to swap those out, and that ended up working out because Chase scored a ton of points, led some laps, and finished well in the stages. So featured matchups, I picked Hamlin over Larson. That was right. I picked Wallace over Harvick. That was wrong. I picked Reddick over Bell. That was right. And I picked Chastain over Logano, and that was wrong. So I went 2 for 2, or two out of 4 in the featured matchup. So I left some points on the table there as well, but it was enough to finish 18th overall in points earned at Kansas. You had a better day though.
Oh, I had Reddick, who was the number 1 point getter of the day. I had Hamlin, who was the number 2 point getter on the day. I had Larson, who was the number 3 point getter on the day. I had Bell, who ended up being the 7th best points guy. And then I had Ryan, 8th best points guy at 35 points. And then Logano was in the garage, and he would have been worth 35 points. So the feature matchups where I messed up. I only had Logano beating Chastain. That was it. I had Bell, who was the loss. Bubba lost to Harvick, and Larson lost by a couple spots to Hamlin. So I could have had another 20 points maybe if I, got a couple of those right. But the roster was really strong, and I didn't have to make any changes, luckily. Like you said, some people, the 19 right away everybody was scrambling. And the bad part about that is with fantasy is you only get one change. So okay,
Yep.
right off the bat that happens. But what happens then if you've got Bubba too later on or something?
That
then
was
you've
me.
got- yeah,
I was over for me at that point.
Yeah, you can't make that move. So yeah, overall good weekend for my fantasy team. My playoffs are looking good.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at the top 10 in points earned in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League from Kansas Speedway. Three-way tie for 10th between Penske Fan 24, Blaney Kicks Beep, and the Nutty Gamer with 222 points. And ninth, it's my wife, into the top 10 here. Rogers T, 223. Tie for seventh here between Blaniacal and Mez 12, your team at 225. Sixth, we have Blaring Idiots, 229. Fifth, the Buckeye Bullet, 231. And fourth, Moose Hunter 1960 with 232 points. And third is Glitterbugs 234. Second, Zero Schlitz Given 235. And in first position in points earned from Kansas in the league, Joe Lopez won 237 points. So our next listing we are going to go with is the playoff standings here. And we are both doing pretty well. I'm a little sad because I don't think you were in the top 10 last week, but you vaulted yourself up into the top 10 now, where it's a good one here. Here we go. Rogers T, again, wife Tara in the 10th position with 420 points. Tie for 8th. We have JD Racing and Blaring Idiots at 422. 7th is Go Larson at 425. My team in 6th with 426 points. And 5th, the Prime Minister 427. And 4th, Cool Guy 2K 429. Mez 12, your team is in the 3rd position now in the playoff standings, 430 points. Second is US Calvin, 435. And in the 1st position overall in the playoff standings for our league, Moose Hunter 1960, 442. So I've always joked that I come alive in the playoffs, and here we are, second week in out of the 10 races, and we're both in the top 10. So I think this is going to be a fun battle going forward. Hopefully we can stay consistently up there.
Try to stay up there.
I do say that this playoff standings is really just for bragging rights as far as our league goes. The one we really care about is the overall point standings. So that's points earned all throughout the season, regular season and playoffs. So let's take a look at the overall standings. I am mired back in those standings in the 39th position with 5,035 points. And let's take a look now into, so I'll mention you're not in the top 10. You are in the top 15 though. Mez 12 holding down the 14th position, 5,281. In 10th, Fike 12, 5,318. 9th, Alyssa C, 5,321. 8th is JD Racing, 5,323. 7th is Eric D, 15, 5,395. 6th is Blaring Idiots, 5,402. 5th is Christian Dana, 5,413. And 4th is Penske Fan 24, 5,430. 3rd is Go Larson, 5,453. 2nd is Blaney's Daisy, 5,530. And the overall leader and the overall standings of the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, once again, is still Factory of Sadness 6, who must have not been sad this past weekend as the Brownies beat the Bengals, 5,572 points. So they're having a great week and weekend so far between football and NASCAR Fantasy Live. The one person, man, I just want to know what happened. Math Mom 4 led the standings like all year long and just fell off the face of the earth. So hopefully everything is okay with Math Mom 4. I was rooting for you. You're doing real well. I think I saw the name pop up a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, that's opened up some positions here for some other folks to get up there into the top 10. So again, Factory of Sadness 6 leading the way in the overall standings. And again, we've already chatted about it a little bit, but that brings us back to this weekend, Bristol Motor Speedway, and the action actually kicks off there when it comes to NASCAR on Thursday, September 14th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series UNOH 200. That race is going to be on FS1. This is actually the first race of their next round of the playoffs. They just had a cutoff race this past week in Kansas. Zane Smith moved on, still in the playoff standings there in the Craftsman Truck Series. So that, again, Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Friday, September 15th, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You might need to pop this on your phone while you're at work. If you're still at work, the NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying, that's going to be on USA. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Later on in the evening, the NASCAR Xfinity Series Food City 300, also on the USA Network. And then this Saturday, one of the biggest races of the year, the NASCAR Cup Series Bass Pro Shops Night Race, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on USA. It is the final race of the round of 16 in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. As I mentioned, Ryan Blaney plus 25 to the good over that cutoff line at Bristol Motor Speedway. A little bit feast or famine for the driver of the 12 car. 13 starts on the concrete. Two top fives, 5 top tens, but because of several finishes here, 30th or worse, average finish of 19.5. So it's almost like he either finishes top 10, top 15, or 30th on back. And I think that's just Bristol, especially a little bit older Bristol. Last year, I know from attending that race, there was like a mini Talladega wreck on the backstretch. So, I mean, anything can kind of happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't even want to bring up last year. I mentioned the drama of the playoffs last year. Ryan came out of the gate in this race at Bristol super fast, led some laps early on, and fenced it at one point. And this caused some major drama. They had toe links to fix. They had all kinds of things to fix. They spent some time on pit road, got the car back out there. And I'm sure this was, I think, it made for TV moment where the car was sparking like crazy as he's trying to meet minimum speed, picks up the caution. They spend much more time on, losing several laps, fixing the car on pit road. They take it behind the wall for what seemed like half the race. I mean, this was last year. You talk about survival.
Mm-hmm.
That road crew, they fixed that car, got it back out there. They finished the race. There was some attrition. They advanced to the next round of the playoffs. That was amazing recovery. I don't want to see that at all this Saturday night for sure.
Well, they started sixth last year, so they qualified well to begin with. And like you said, at one point, they led 9 laps early on. They got themselves up there, had more speed than a lot of guys. That's all we really want to see is stay up ahead of some guys. Only 12 cars stayed on the lead lap last year. So I think there were some long green flag runs in there even. So, just be one of those guys, be a top 10 guy all day, stay out of trouble, don't make any trouble, and just get out of there, survive in advance again. Let's get to the round of 12, and, hopefully I'll get some good video and some good pictures and maybe even a good TikTok or two out there. Cause, like I said, we're going down Saturday night, making the trip.
Now you mentioned some guys to watch, and one of those was Chris Buescher, who picked up the victory last year, the first win for RFK Racing since Brad Keselowski had taken over. Now, obviously, Buescher has won 3 of the last 6 or 7 races on the Cup Series season, so he's going back to a place that had a lot of success last year. Brad Keselowski actually led laps in that race as well, and I think he had some issues down the stretch that, unfortunately, I think he may have fell out of top 5 at that point, but Buescher did go on to win. Looking at the last several people that won this one on the concrete at Bristol, and we're going to go back to 2019. Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, and Christopher Buescher all picked up victories on the concrete. You mentioned Ryan had speed, led some laps, had an issue there, ends up in the wall. Outside of Ryan, who we're hoping has a good day, solid day, and Chris Buescher, as you mentioned, anybody else to be worried about? Kevin Harvick was almost I don't want to call it a Cinderella story. It'd be weird to say, but people were rooting for him to win Darlington. Things didn't work out there. He has some wins at Bristol. Could they show some speed? Is this going to be another Kyle Larson race? Is this, Chase Elliott found speed last week, led laps, had some issues with his teammates. Is this when the 9 car finally breaks through, gets a victory? Those are kind of some of the folks that I'm looking at for this weekend.
Yeah, just, it's not a lot to look at because it's a new generation car. They only ran one other race with this generation car last year, but Chase Elliott finished second last year. Harvick was a top 10 guy last year. Denny Hamlin, right now, might be the best thing out there, and yet he has nothing to show for it these first couple of weeks.
I feel so bad in the Discord. They're on that green flag run to the end. and people were saying they were hoping we'd get a caution so Ryan could maybe get a chance to catch back up. And I was like, oh, don't worry, something's going to happen here because the 11 car hasn't figured out a way to lose this race yet. And moments later is when that caution comes out, and the 11 car, unfortunately for another week in a row, loses the race. And it's bittersweet for him because his he loses the race, but the car that he owns wins the race. So
he's the Charlie Brown right now, and there's a cloud just following him down the track because I mean he's out there, really has probably the best car, and he's one of the best drivers, and he puts himself out there in a position, and something happens, and then something happens, and so this week here, he's somebody I would look at for sure. Like you said, but like I said earlier, Bubba's got to make a Hail Mary, but it's not to say that the car doesn't have the speed to do it. Advanced Auto Parts is on the car this week, so that's all we're really worried about. Let's just advance to the next round and then go from there.
We honestly really need to get Advance a good finish because their cars have looked slick last couple of years. But man, they've had some issues in this race. So Kyle Busch, that's another, you're talking about, a dark cloud following a guy around. That 8 car has had speed different times, lots of crashes in practice. Historically, Bristol, one of his favorite tracks, best tracks. He's won there on the concrete. He's won there on dirt with some luck. The 8 car might be somebody else. Last year, I think he had a good car, and then it was like a second or third time where he had an engine expire in the playoffs. And when he was still driving for Joe Gibbs Racing, I remember the dejection he had walking through the pits there after his engine failed, and he fell out of the playoffs last year. So, so like I think you said, Hamlin, Keselowski, man, he's been looking for a win. He's been right up there with his teammate and one of the car he owns with Buescher. So if the RFK cars are good again, I wouldn't be surprised if Keselowski could put his car up front too. So it's a lot of the big name drivers. I'm not looking for a surprise. Buescher was a little bit of a surprise last year, but I think it's going to be a big name driver that wins the Bass Pro Shops night race, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, Saturday. Remember, this is a Saturday night race. Your Sunday can be full of football if you want, but Saturday night, make sure you're tuning into the Cup Series race.
Yeah, they're the weather is something too to think about. Friday of practice, qualifying will be Friday, and then Saturday night's race. During the day, the temperatures are only like 75, so they're not going to be sweltering hot like it can be sometimes there. And the nighttime is going to get into the 50s, so they're going to be kind of grippy as the race goes on. There should be good grip in the track, and that temperature, going down like that, hopefully will help the grip, even on concrete. So. I can't wait to see what happens. Friday night's practice qualifying. I don't set the fantasy lineup until I see that in action. That usually helps me a little bit. And this week here is amazing to watch because we're talking tenths or hundredths of a second when you're looking at 15-second laps. So, going to be really, really hard to say where how bad or how good somebody is. But they'll run 30 and 40 laps in practice if they can to get them in, and that'll be interesting to see what like a long run looks like too on average speed. So if you can take 2 tires at some point later in the race, you'll be able to know that by what they show on the lap averages. So I'm getting excited. I mean, it's we're recording this Monday night, and I can't wait to get driving down there this weekend.
Yeah, one of the most exciting races of the year, even if it's not, action-packed like Bristol has been in the past. I can tell you, last year wasn't necessarily action-packed, but it's our first time at Bristol watching it on the concrete in person. I mean, it's a spectacle. They filled the stands pretty well for this night race last year, and like you said, you're going to be in attendance. I think the Mariottis are going. Several other Blaney fans that, we chat with from time to time are heading up there as well. As far as I know right now on a Monday, we're not going, but who knows? Sometimes these Saturday night races, we decide last minute and pack up the car and go. So I hope you guys have a great time. Again, the Bass Pro Shops night race. It is a Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on the USA Network. So Steve, that pretty much wraps up our NASCAR portion of the show, but we do once again have a dirt racing update because those 2 Blaney brothers just will not stop winning in Northeast Ohio. I don't want to call it cherry picking, but they are up there, Sharon Speedway, another weekend. This time it was for the Apple Festival Nationals, which is one of their biggest race weekends of the year at Sharon Speedway. But Dale Blaney comes out on top this week over brother Dave. So they finished 1-2 again in the Apple Fest Nationals. Dale Blaney picking up his third victory of the season at Sharon Speedway, tying his brother Dave, who also has 3 victories this year at Sharon Speedway. Man, not in their house. You could not go to their house when they're racing and pick up the win. And it's funny, I saw it was weird, which I think, when it comes to Dale and Dave, you don't usually see this, but there's some social media comments out there from a person that said, like I mentioned, cherry picking, like, oh, they own the track, they shouldn't be racing, they shouldn't do that. I compare this to cup drivers, running Xfinity or something. Those guys up there that run regularly in Northeast Ohio, they have a leg up on them because they're running constantly. Dale and Dave aren't out there every single week, but a lot of those guys want to run them. They want to run against them. It means something when you beat a Blaney in a sprint car in Northeast Ohio. And I mean, they've each run more than 3 races this year at Sharon. So they haven't just come in and won every single time. But man, as a fan, as a longtime fan of Dave, longtime fan of Dale, they definitely have had a resurgence this year. Dave, even a couple years ago, picking up that World of Outlaws victory. Dale, just the fact that he's gotten back behind the seat of a race car after being out for a couple years and working with the sanctioning body and being an official. So great to see him back behind the wheel. And that 32B car has been in victory lane multiple times this season. And it's nice to see the lowrider, the tall, cool one, Dale Blaney in victory lane, celebrating at his home track at Sharon Speedway. So a couple weeks in a row there, great news on the dirt front when it comes to the Blaney family, and another 1-2 finish with Dale and Dave at Sharon Speedway. So I want to thank you, everyone, once again for tuning into this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, listen to our very, very, very first episode. That seems like it was years ago, but it really was only a couple of years ago, that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and Twitter at Team Blaney, and on Instagram. Sorry, I need to change this in my script. Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter, at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.Blaney. And finally, we'd like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation, established in 2018. This organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch fan club. To learn more, visit ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, Instagram, all of their active social media channels. So for my co-host, Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.